Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a short little knife review to share with you guys. I say that because I have reviewed this knife in so many forms. We already know that the Kizer Sheepdog, this is the standard size, by the way. They do make a larger one and a smaller one, but we already know that the standard size Kizer Sheepdog, designed by Sheepdog Knives, is a very, very good knife. If you didn't know that, this is a great knife. I'm literally gonna link every available variant of this knife right down in the description. If you've never seen this knife before, it is worth exploring. This is a super cool design. You can also check out my other reviews on this knife if you want to. But Kizer has done something really special here. They've actually taken the bar up a notch further and done an even better version of this knife. And I wanted to share it with you guys without making the video too lengthy. So links for this in the description. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's up to you. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Thanks to Kizer for sending this knife in for review. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. So what have they done here? They've added the clutch lock, which is essentially Kizer's version of the axis lock, to the Sheepdog profile. Now, there's a bunch of different versions of the Sheepdog. They've got frame locks, they got liner locks, they got button locks, right? They got flipper versions. They've got versions with holes. The best version, in my opinion, is the version that has no flipper because it creates for much better ergonomic comfort. You don't have to work around that flipper tab. And then the versions that have the opening hole. The downside to a lot of those models is that none of them were truly ambidextrous, while it was plenty easy to manipulate. As a right-handed person, it was very easy for me to manipulate those with my left hand. I think lefties were just okay with dealing with it, right? Sorry, kind of lost track of where I was going there. They were all like not ambidextrous. This is now fully ambidextrous. And it is very, very easy to manipulate. They've also gone yet another step further and added thumb studs to the version that has the opening hole, which is the opening hole is now slightly different. You would think that this would really, like, it would get in the way, but truthfully, what is that, a 1/16 of an inch of the cutting edge is actually on the same path as the thumb studs? Yeah, not really. So what this allows for you to do is thumb flick it out very, very easily, or reverse flick it like you would a Spyderco knife, or wheel it out with the opening hole, right? I think this is pretty cool. I think the ease of manipulation has just gone up that much more, and Kizer makes a great clutch lock. They make a great axis lock. It's, under normal circumstances, not going to fail as long as you use it like a knife. This is really, really good. So ultimately, I mean, I'll go ahead and do specs and things and talk about this, but truthfully, I think that this is the best version that they've made. They have a couple different variations. This is one of the more expensive variations right now. If you're looking at it, they're like, great, but I'm not sure what I think about the aesthetic. This is, I think, the most expensive version that they make at the time of this recording, right? This is late January 2024. Won't surprise me if they do different variations. This is a fat carbon that's red, white, and blue. And then we have a coated S35VN blade. They also have an aluminum version of this in 154 cm. Now that comes in much less expensive at $119. This is about $190. I don't disagree with any of those prices, but I think your best bet right now is to buy the less expensive version. Let's go ahead and do specs real quick. If you don't know, this is the medium-sized version of the knife. 7.5 inches overall. Blade length is 3.25. Cutting edge is 2.85. We're just going to do a few size comparisons today up against the Spyderco Para 3, the Hogue Deca. Let's do the CJRB Pyrite. Let's do the Demco AD 20.5. We're really in this same territory, right? It's just that the Sheepdog, the medium-sized Sheepdog feels like a larger knife because the blade profile is so tall. This is going to be, typical, it's just axis lock construction. So you have Omega springs, which they do actually provide extra Omega springs, which is really cool. Taking it apart, anybody who's ever disassembled a knife like this knows that it's a little bit finicky. You can do it, but it can be a little bit frustrating. So, as long as you have patience and the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. And speaking of the right tools for the job, we'll go ahead and do a hardware check. Get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use in this channel, or the pinned comment. There we go. There's my T8. So we have a T8 pivot, and we also have T8 for the body screws, which is awesome. These are full nested liners on this guy, and I have to assume that the aluminum one is the same. Why is this good? The cartridge liner stuff, like what Benchmade does, where's the bug outs? Here it is. Boy, that drives me crazy. Look at all these screws. That's just ridiculous. No, we got one screw, and that one of the standoffs is literally just pinned in there or floating, which is fine. I think that's great. Anything they can do to alleviate the general frustration of taking apart, disassembling and reassembling an axis lock style knife, I think that's awesome. So nice work there. And of course, the body screws are T8, which is awesome. We have a couple of T6 screws for the pocket clip, no big deal, and that's pretty much it. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Blade stock thickness, I don't think this has changed, but I'll go ahead and I honestly can't remember what the blade stock thickness of the other variations is. So let's make sure we're on a flat here. Blade stock thickness coming in at about 110 thousandths. Weight. We'll go ahead and weigh it. Obviously, the weight's going to be different depending on which version you get. They do these in aluminum, in titanium, in micarta, in brass. That's all over the place. I have a brass one that's a button lock, right? So the carbon fiber, this is probably going to weigh about the same as any variant that's coming in G10. Did they even do G10? Micarta, right? With the nested liner. So this variant right here, 4.23 ounces. Not the best ratios, but certainly not bad. All right, meat and potatoes time. As per usual, the ergonomic profile of this knife is wonderful. The pocket clip, I don't mind it. I am I am flabbergasted by the fact that part of the clip is angled. Why? Well, because this is an ambidextrous knife. Now, I looked through the box, and this is the second time that I've mentioned this on one of these Sheepdog. I don't know why the bug out is still in frame. I've mentioned this before. It does not come with a second clip. Well, if you flip it over, isn't it just the same on the other side? No. Think about this. If we flip this clip over, the angle of the bill is now this way. So left-handed people technically have a slightly different experience. They have a clip bill that angles the other way. But let's think about this. Does it affect left-handed people that much? I don't think so. But Kizer, why not just make the bill of the clip, like the whole thing is symmetrical except for the bill? Just make it symmetrical. Like, it's weird, right? But okay, it's fine. I'm glad that lefties can now fully enjoy a model of the Sheepdog. Like, I mean, that's great. It's just as easy to manipulate for you guys. I think that's awesome. And you can mount the pocket clip and have almost exactly the same experience, right? I think that's wonderful. If you're right-handed and sometimes I switch my knife to my left hand, and I love knives that are, as convenient to manipulate as possible, right? Because I get so frustrated. I've told this story many times. If I'm doing something, if I'm working or doing anything, if I'm just have little home projects or whatever, and I'm doing something with my right hand because it's my dominant hand, right? Sometimes whatever it is that I'm doing with my right hand is much more important than which hand is holding my knife, because I can still use my left hand to manipulate a knife. So it's nice to have a knife that I can manipulate with my non-dominant hand while I do something that's much more important, right, for safety reasons or whatever, with my dominant hand. So if you're like me, and I'm not going to call myself an ambidextrous person, right? It's just I'm an awkward lefty. I like to be able to switch this over and manipulate it. It's very, very convenient. Edges still very nicely knocked down. Choke up spots, very, very good. I love the blade profile, the sheep's foot, the large, tall sheep's foot blade, because it's cool without being so big and so weird that it's actually inconveniencing you. A lot of people will carry like an oversized knife where the height or the thickness or whatever exaggerated feature of the blade is so over the top, they're actually inconveniencing themselves. And that's okay. I mean, I try to be self-aware about that and just admit to myself, like, hey, I'm carrying this because I think it's cool, and that's that, right? This knife, in my opinion, actually has all of the cool factor. Now, the XL version of this, I think, is a little over the top. But this version, you still get all the cool factor of the blade without the blade height, blade profile actually inconveniencing you, which is cool. I think that's a little bit rare to get something like this in the knife world, right? It's kind of hard to get a blade profile this tall and then actually have it benefit you. The grind gets nice and thin. The tip is still enough present there that you can do a little bit of puncturing. I love that little notch right at the, I guess the bridge of the nose. It allows you to do some controlled draw cuts. It's just really, really nice. It also looks really good. This fuller isn't big enough to really catch anything or slow anything down. Periodically, you will run things into the thumb stud, and I think a fair argument, and I know that people are going to make this argument, and I kind of agree with you. A fair argument here is that the thumb studs are probably unnecessary on this, right? Either do just a thumb stud or just an opening hole is, I think, what some people will say, and I kind of agree there. I think where it's going to be a problem is if you're cutting thick, dense material and you're trying to get as close to that index finger choke up spot as you can so that you can put all the power into the cut. The thumb studs might catch some material, thicker cardboard, styrofoam, something like that. And that might create a little bit of a problem. For the most part, though, I don't think it will really be that big of an issue. But I know there will definitely be people out there wishing that the thumb studs weren't there. And truthfully, if I had an option, if I could get exactly this, and they said, you can have an opening hole by itself, you can have an opening hole and thumb studs, or you can have just thumb studs. Honestly, I'd probably just go with the opening hole version, right? That would be absolutely ideal. But this isn't really a problem, and I don't really think it should be a deal breaker. I think it's just fine. Manipulation, deployment, it's all great. Obviously, this has no detent ball. Right? The detent is created by the tension, I guess, as that crossbar passes over the event horizon, the rounded tang of the blade, right? But being able to throw the blade or reverse flick it or whatever, it's great. I think there's enough mass in the blade that you get a lot of satisfaction out of deploying it. It's very easy to deploy. It doesn't feel loosey-goosey. Speaking of things not feeling loosey-goosey, Kizer's clutch lock is very tight, not wobbly. The Omega Springs are high tension enough that it just feels good. I have no complaints there. Pocket clip position in and out of the pocket is fine. I think the pocket clip is pretty good. There's not really a whole lot to talk about here. We have recessed screws and a recessed clip. It's just a decent basic clip. I just would prefer that the bill came to a symmetrical point, right? I think that would be better. Honestly, just like more of a spoon like this, something like this would be perfect. But okay, couple of standoffs. No lanyard attachment of any sort. I don't know that that really matters. If you really want to, you could attach it to the pocket clip, right? You could kind of run it through this little hole right here. There's still ways to attach a lanyard if you really want to. Lockup is completely and totally solid. There's no lock stick. There's no pivot lash. Nice and smooth in here. We are running on bearings, by the way. Nice snap into the close position. And as you can see, we are perfectly centered. So this version is $190. The base version, as far as I know. Number one, maybe you're watching this way in the future and they have they're now offering something different. Also, maybe you're watching this when this knife came out and there were no listings for what I'm about to request, or I just didn't see them. So if this does exist, then that's great. Then they have done exactly what I think that they should do. If this does not exist yet, this is definitely something they need to do. Kizer, this exact setup here, you need to make it as inexpensive as you possibly can. They have a version of this, like I said, in aluminum and 154 cm, and I think that's great, but I think you should go a step further and make a budget, like a true budget version of it. By my standards, I'm not saying you have to do what I say. I'm just saying it'd be awesome to have a version of this exact knife under $75. So 14C28N and G10, I think that would be excellent. This would be one of the most preferred budget knives on earth. The profile is that good. The ease of manipulation, all of this, I mean, the design overall is just really, really great. So having a version that's even less expensive and even more accessible to people is even better. They're obviously willing to explore as many variants of this knife as as they can. I mean, I can't. This model has more variations than I've seen of almost anything else on the market. The little ones, the big ones, right? The medium-sized one, medium flipper frame lock, medium opening hole frame lock, XL flipper liner lock, XL titanium frame lock. Like, there's so many. It's just crazy. So yeah, why not make this? I feel like they know this is the popular profile. It's not just because I'm saying it. I mean, people seem to like this profile better, right? So why not take this ultimate profile and make it as inexpensive as possible? Again, the 119 variant, aluminum and 154 cm, I think that's a great price for those materials, right? Make a version for people who don't need the aluminum and the 154. Make a version of it that's even less expensive. I think that would be excellent. This, of course, is a very recommendable knife, no matter which form you get. So I'm putting this in my recommended knives playlist, but I'm not necessarily talking about this exact configuration. S35VN and the carbon fiber is fine, but whatever version you get, I think it's excellent. That's really all I have to say. This actually ended up being a much longer video than I thought it would. So anyways, links for this guy down in the description. Thanks again to Kizer for sending it in. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.